Where is this? It's here, right?
Yeah.
I mean, this is,
It's not the same screen.
it's not the same screen.
No.
Okay, so is it on this one?
No, it's on this screen. And on that.
No. How do we control this?
Oh, you need to get me the USB dongle. USB dongle somewhere.
It's here.
Or maybe it's lost and we'll just next slide thing.
This one? No.
No. There's a small USB dongle that goes with it. Sometimes it's stuck in.
Oh, okay.
thing. But I don't see it, so we'll manage without it.
Now, how do we start it?
We've already started.
It doesn't work.
What are you trying to do?
I'm trying to move the page. So
No, that's on my computer.
on your computer. Okay. No wonder.
Okay, welcome to the I2NSF meeting. The note well is on the screen. So our charter is on that link, mailing list. Do we have minutes taker? We can't proceed without. Thank you. And we need someone on the Jabber room. Is anyone in the Jabber room? Please, people, we can't proceed without a Jabber scribe.
Is anybody in the Java room? Nobody, right?
Oh, we have a volunteer. Thank you. Okay. And the blue sheets are going around. Please fill them in and circulate. Our agenda is there. Minutes taker may or may not use Etherpad as they wish.
I just want to add a note for the minute taker. For people who have thoughts, questions, and please put your questions in the Etherpad. And also, if your name is not taken correctly, please correct them. Everybody has right to make changes to the Etherpad.
Okay, so this is our agenda. It's rather large, but we also have 2.5 hours, so we should be able to do it. Okay. Let's see if that works. It takes a minute. Oh, it works. Okay, so since the last meeting, we've had the framework draft published as RFC 8329. We have a couple of new working group drafts, and we have to make a decision point if the following 4 are ready for working group last call. Okay. And we got a couple of working group adoption candidates. Right. Okay, Pinda, want to describe this? This is
Okay, so this basically shows what we have so far in our working group. And so our working group main deliverables are the data models. And to prepare for data models, we have some information models. And those are the optional. It will be up to the working group decision whether we should publish them or not. So from the top information model, we have the base model, which is capability information model. And from there, we derive the consumer-facing information model. We have NSF-facing, and we have the monitoring. So we have registration interface. And for the data models, we have NSF facing, consumer facing, and we have registration. So one option we could be in the final deliverable could be we merge the information with the data model as like an appendix, or we can publish them independently depending on the content and whichever is easier. So so those is basically the summary of what we have and what we want to deliver. Since this working group is over 2 years old, and we need to finish those data models as soon as possible. Okay.
Linda, Frank Xia, I see there's some minor change of this arrangement from our previous condition, especially about the data model. You mentioned here we have a capability data model 03 version as a base model for all the other data model. But is it a decision or?
No. This is just what we have so far. This is what I see. And if there's some discrepancy from people with thinking, please voice them out.
Okay, my personal feeling is that it's very definite that for the NSF facing and for the customer facing, that's a key. That's the two key data model that we need and we have right now. And the last data model, for example, the capability data model and the registration and the monitoring. Maybe I think here we still missed our monitoring data model.
Okay.
Right. But I think the left data models still need to discuss. There are some overlapping or something not very clear for me. Those data models should be, if it's totally correct or something.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just my personal feeling. And last point is about the information model. I want to say that I agree this graph, since it elaborates that the capability model or capability draft is the basic model for all the other information model, right? It provides a basic structure and a basic concept for the other interface information model. So, so maybe but currently there's some in alignment between those information. So I think that's our next step. We need to make more consistent between these drafts.
Okay.
That's my opinion. Yeah.
Okay, so just summarize what I heard from you. You're saying that first point is the data model there, the NSS facing and the consumer facing, those are two definitely deliverables from the working group. And you feel there's some overlap between those two and the registration and capability. Is that, I'm just trying to
Yes.
paraphrase.
I personally think that those two data models are not so clear or not so good enough for me.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Maybe that's some problem we can discuss and solve it and to make it, yes, good. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, Diego Lopez. I think that something that we should agree somehow is which are the documents we have to. The group should put most effort on to have, as you said, to deliver something on time. And precisely, I will ask the people that are working on these drafts. We need the capability. The capability model. I tend to talk about the capability model because it's not only an information model. I see it as the core of what we're talking about. We're talking about capabilities of the functions.
Right.
Whether it's an information or whatever, it's the model of the capability. That implies that we need the capability model plus the capability data model. Both of them need to be. I think that the capability, the base model, as I said there, it's not in a bad shape.
Okay.
Probably it's not 100% aligned and has some oversimplifications, but it's fine. The capability model should be close to ready, I hope soon. And then what I do is focus on the data models, because we have been spending a lot of time in discussing the other information models, and in my view, as a deliverable, they're much more important, the data models. And well, you know that I'm much more in favor of incorporating the information models as some kind of rational or appendix or whatever for the data models, and that the goal should be the data models. I would encourage people that are working on that to precisely to work on the data models in refining them and having them ready as soon as we can.
Okay, thank you.
So this is a Paul Zhang from SKKU. So according to RFC 3.4, right, information model is for a guideline to describe the modeled object. So I think the current information model, especially the capability, is a good stage. So my group are working for information model based on current I2NSF capability, our working document. So we try to following ECA, the paradigm. We try to address the philosophy. So my opinion is the information model is still useful to give a high-level idea to people, understand the data model eventually. Without the good description of modeled object using the information model, it is very difficult to understand the actual data model. So my opinion is the current separation of information data model is more concisely can describe, also people can read. But one concern is that Diego mentioned the consistency between information model and data model. So in that case, the author can collaborate and then try to make synchronization. So in that case, it is doable. And also we can ask people in our working group, we have to merge data model, information model, or we can separately. So we can ask this at the meeting, okay? And also the data model case, I have a comment. Susan model case, also the previous last 5 hackathon project, we used the Susan's, the Hare's, the capability data model for the basis. So we already proved. So the Susan data model is a foundation for resolution. So resolution interface data model, I will explain later on my presentation. It has 3. So I think the Susan's also a good stage we can working together. So that's why I suggest adoption of working item. Okay, that's it.
Okay, thank you. So should we go to the next one? So make sure that work on the wiki, and I think that's a little updated, and maybe we need to update after this meeting.
Well, and it's a wiki, so anyone can update it. And I think that's the end of this slide deck. Right. So what's first on the agenda?
It's the hackathon.
Oh, hackathon report, right. Sorry.
Good morning. This is Paul from SKQ Sungkyunkwan University, Korea. So this hackathon is the 5th hackathon for our I2NSF framework project. So this time we explained 2 features. The first one is dynamic configuration, given high-level security service, how to map into the actual NSF. The second one is consumer-facing interface. We used less.com. We made more completely. Okay. So this work is implemented by my university 7 graduate students. So also we involved in 2 outside people from E3 and Korea Telecom. So the research lab and actual operator.
So I mentioned the dynamic configuration, consumer page interface. We reflect the latest our data young model. So the first one is the consumer facing. So recently we adopt, right? So we reflect this data model into this hackathon. The second one is also NSF facing case. We are providing dynamic configuration from security service into actual NSF. So next time we try to make a security controller fully translate high-level security into low-level security using automaton such as context-free grammar. So my student and I actually working on it. Hopefully, next Montreal meeting we try to show security controller translate high-level policy into low-level policy. So this is open source. This is the scenario is similar previous our hackathon, the group-based web access blocking, GitHub and YouTube are providing open source and the manual and the video clip to show the step how to demonstrate. So we proved our hackathon using existing the open source I2NSF framework and interfaces are very useful, providing data-driven security management and enforcement. Okay, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for doing the hackathon, and it's very useful to prove that the data model we developed are actually implementable. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
So next one is the working group update. Working group draft update is the applicability.
Yeah,
applicability.
Yeah,
You
it
have
is
it?
very hard to pronounce.
Applicability.
Capability data model?
Not capability. Applicability.
Oh,
the-
applicability.
Yeah, that's the one is ready for.
Applicability 0.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the applicability of the document describes the how to deploy I2NSF into real security system. So the update is the section 4. We clarify the motivation and the benefit combining SDN and with I2NSF. Secondly, also we clarify the type of policy rule can be enforced with SDN switching or NSF, depending on security service, firewall or deep packet inspection, something like that. And also we explain that the role of a security controller support divided, which means simple filtering can be performed into open virtual open switch using the flow table. Secondly, some more complicated security service can be performed on the NSF. So we show. So the main contents also we published IEEE communication magazine. So I believe this the applicability document also already approved by academia. So I believe we can go ahead for the publication for RFC. So I mentioned the combination of I2NSF SDN is useful, demonstrate firewall and DPI and DDoS attack mitigation. So this one is already explained the last meeting, so I can skip it. So the framework, you can see the SDN switch can be part of the security service. That is the main idea. So we demonstrate 3 interfaces for our I2NSF. Consumer NSF registration, we showed the usefulness. And also this is the accelerated security service I explained before. So my suggestion is we publish a working group last call after your reviewing. And then if you have a suggestion or some comment, we can address. Yeah, that's it. Thank you. Okay, Diego, yeah, go ahead.
Diego Lopez again. First of all, it's something we were commenting that I miss in the document is consistent story flow that connects the different parts, and this is something that I will try to provide. So And second is that looking at this presentation and two other documents that are somehow related to this is one that is dealing with NFV and SFC. I was wondering whether we could try to put all of them together, because it would build again a consistent story of the different applicability, because then if we publish a document that is applicability using SDN, applicability using NFV, applicability using SFC, is something that looks a little bit not precisely very much self-consistent. I would try to merge the three documents. I see value in the three documents, and as a showing how you can apply these principles in different environments.
So my question is, my answer is, the SFC-based traffic steering is still ongoing. We try to use the existing SFC. So my team is implement using the OpenDaylight, the SFC functionality. But Linda and I discussed, should we use the current SFC, or we are using our own traffic, we can say just the traffic analyzed based the forwarding. So maybe we have different approach. So that document is also important. It takes time to verify. So my suggestion is this document already showed pure NFV environment I2NSF service, and also we showed the applicability of SDN, how to combine SDN into I2NS. This one is already we showed using hackathon, we proved. So also we showed three services. One is firewall, network security service. The second one is DPI for security content service. Third one is DDoS attack mitigation, means the attack mitigation, right? So three attacks are main attacks interest in our working group, right? So we addressed. So that's why I believe this is ready for working group REST. If we consider your second comment is the HNFV framework case, still nobody implemented I2NSF into real system. My student, my other collaborator still working on it. It takes another 1 or 2 years. We don't know actual applicable or not. So it takes another, yeah. So that's why we try to minimize the feasibility of our I2NSF2 into reality, and then we can, so, and later on, your comment, okay, we can work on some several, other work. So that's it,
Basically, I mean, my idea would be that if we go for let's call, that implies that we will freeze somehow the contents. And I think that would be advisable if there is some related work to, I mean, the document is good, is adopted, is there, but that we wait a little bit till it's we go through the last call. Simply that, just to incorporate these other cases. I think it would translate into a higher quality of the document. I don't know. And this is something that I leave to the chairs to decide whether there is a strong pressure in publishing this. It is a draft, it is an adopted draft. We can keep working on it, we can keep referring it, we can keep using it. But before publishing, I would like to see it converge with all use cases. Simply that.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay, let's move on.
So next one is the Frank's capability update.
Capability 00 or capability data model?
Information.
That's one, right?
Yes.
Hello everyone. It's Frank Xia, Huawei. I'd like to introduce our capability model, drafts, latest progress. Right now, we haven't finished this update, this version update, but in this slide, I will give you a clear description of what is in the very near future, in what is the content, what is the new modification in our updated version. So that's today's slides go. Okay. For some people who may be not very familiar with our I2NSF work in general, or how we what is our basic principle to define the capability model. So we will give an introduction, a very brief introduction of our basic idea, and then I will bring you the key update of the next version. We want to incorporate the decorated model into the capability model to make it more flexible and more efficient when the policy is in the runtime. We want to use it, so that's we can see how to use it, and then another planning update we introduce. Okay, and this capability model, its general goal is to define the concept of the NSF capability and its semantics. So you can say that it's an information model, because based on the model, we know what is the capability and how to use them and what is semantic of them. Okay, and then based on the capability model, we define the concept of the NSF policy rule and also its semantic with the form of information model. So this policy model is our, this is a goal of this working group. By using the policy model, we can combine, we can control, we can manage all the security capabilities and to provide the required functions for our customer. So that's a goal. And okay, I have said this, and so the most important goal is to achieve the multi-vendor interoperability, right? Okay, then so the basic content of our capability model is a structure of ECA. We call it the ECA because it consists of three causes. Everyone is event, condition, and action. So the event means that the significant occurrences that the NSF is able to react to. And the condition is how the NSF decides which action to apply. Action is any kind of operation that we can execute on the traffic. And so the policy rule is a container that aggregates all these events, conditions, and actions to be a whole body to provide the NSF function to service. Okay, so and in addition to this basic structure element, we also provide some extension to the policy security policy rule, which include one is the resolution strategy. With the resolution strategy is mainly for to provide the template for the policy rule and to solve the conflicts in the policy rule. And the metadata is mainly used by the resolution strategy to make the decision. Okay. And also there are default action in the policy rule, which is also used for some specific condition. Okay, that's all. And okay, this is a new diagram to express our current design of the security policy rule, but with the decorated model pattern design in it. I'm sorry here, this picture is not very it's not complete. Actually, you can see the that one. Okay, you can see the you can see the how to say decorated pattern here. Let me take an example. From the basic rule, policy rule, we inherited the I2NSF policy rule. And in the parallel layer with the I2NSF policy rule, we have our decorated model class, and below that decorated class, we can add different kinds of specific specific policy rule, such as authentication rule, authorization rule, or the filtering rule, user control rule, something. And those rules are the runtime rule, which means that they are not defined and used in the very beginning time. They can define and put there, and when we need it, we just dynamically load them to our basic policy rule. So that makes this kind of decorated model will make our policy rule can be modified when the security controller is in runtime, and so it's very dynamic and flexible. And but sorry, I do not express the whole class design in this picture. But I think in the next version we will give a very detailed description of what it is like. Okay, and I do not want to go into detail of this. But the basic idea is that comparing to our previous design, design is that we just use a very normal way. We define the class inheritance subclass way to define the from the very basic class to our very specific class. That way is very simple, but it's very intuitive, and it's easy to design. But it has its cons. It's not very elegant, and it also requires some non-trivial maintenance when we need to do any update. So, and it cannot work well at runtime. So that's what I mentioned. So that's why we think that maybe decorated mode can be introduced here and to solve this problem well. Okay. And in addition to the decorated mode, I think we have another planned updates, which include that we will extend our event and condition clauses with some more powerful way with the CNF and the DNF block clauses definition to make them can include more semantics, and also we can make our event to be event and evaluation function to be more complex, can express more information and more powerful actions on the traffic. So another extension included the other extension included the action clause evaluation strategy, and we also will include more metadata to help the resolution strategy. So they are all very detailed extension to the current policy rule model or the capability model. And this is actually the previous condition. Maybe in 100 meeting we have this kind of situation. We have our basic capability model draft, and based on this basic model, we can define the customer-facing interface information model. We can define the registration interface information model and the monitoring interface information model. But we think the basic principle is that all these inherited or all these other information models should follow the same principle as the capability model and use the same metadata or the basic structure way, design way in the capability model. That's so the make all the following data model can be consistent with the one principle, and it can work together well. So that's our hope. And the data model, I think Linda has mentioned, we already have so many, but some of them is good. Some of them still need more improvement. We can work together on them. And so the last one is that just like what I told, we will provide our updated version of the capability draft in the near 2 or 3 weeks, and so make the work can continue for other information model and data model draft, and we will provide our helps. We work as a team to make the alignment between the capability model and the other information model and data model drafts. So that's our current plan. Thanks.
Thank you. Any questions for this? Okay, so for the capability model, since this is the base model, so I hope that you guys can get it delivered soon so that
Yeah, yeah.
other model can be updated accordingly.
Yes, yes.
Because our working group has been, for a long time, we need to deliver those data models.
Yeah. We
Okay.
will, as our promised, we will submit it in 2 or 3 weeks. Yeah.
So this is a Paul from SKQ. So the current the capability information model is a very good shape for method security service such as the firewall. However, content security or authentication case still a rough shape. So we need to go into more detail. My suggestion is probably sticks. Sticks is the threat, the expression, some data model language, as you know. So probably we can take advantage of how to describe content security or threat or authentication, and then we can more clarify the information model.
Okay, we will consider. And you are right. Currently, in our very beginning picture, we want to cover all the different categories of security capabilities. But when we proceed all this work, we find that the content security in the application layer and the attack mitigation series functions is not so easy as the network layer security function to define their policy rule. So our current idea is that we may need to split those content into another draft, so it will not prevent our this current capability model to move forward. So
Yeah, that's a good idea. Separate something which is controversial out so we can move the base model forward. So Diego.
Okay, so no, I was saying we're going to say please as it is, and I would include authentication. When it comes to authentication, it's not clear to me why we have authentication in other of the documents. I don't believe that authentication belongs, I mean, the authentication method to a certain function belongs to its capabilities. It's something that is necessary, but it's not to be listed as a capability. Then I would put this aside and discuss it later.
Yeah, Diego, yeah, I understand you. But maybe you misunderstand me. Sorry. I just use authentication as an example. But you are right. We cannot define all the different kinds of security capability in our base model. I just mean that how to use the decorator model in our model, in our design. So I use the authentication as an example. But you know,
no,
it will not. Maybe it can be the authentication or other very specific security capability can be an example in our appendix, but it should be not the standard things.
Exactly,
Yes.
and let me insist on one thing. The goal of the capability model, as far as I can say, is to show which are the capabilities. It's not to exhaustively
exactly.
list the capabilities. It's not. This is not a catalog of capabilities. It's a way of expressing capabilities, which is different.
Right.
Since people mentioned content security, it just reminds me of I was in the I'm chairing this ONOG, Open Network User Group. There's a working group there called Software Defined Security Service Working Group, and over there is primarily large enterprise communities providing requirement and use cases and their pain point. So over there, they define 3 distinct security, software-defined security. One is bumping the wire, like the IETF have been working on that for ages, right? The firewall, DPIs, and it's all kind of, we have a function performing, enforce the security policies. It's on the wire. And second one is security to be enforced in the hypervisor. Third one is security being enforced by the application. So they categorize in 3 different places. And another thing is there's so much talking about since lots of enterprises want to move the workload to the cloud. Actually, they are like many companies are moving. Like Intuit is moving 40% already into the cloud. Many companies are following the suit. And the biggest part is how do we validate the environment? I think maybe later at the end of this session, we talk about this attestation. That's the part we'll address this. Okay. Thank you.
What's next?
Next one is Young model, the capability data model. Jin-Yong.
Hi everyone, I'm Tim from SKKU. This presentation is about I2NSF capability young data model. This draft is updated version from draft has I2NSF capability data model 05. This draft defines young data model corresponding to the information model for anticipation interface and registration interface. This is a list of changes. We added not only an absolute time zone, but also a periodic time zone to the network security capability. We added port number to a condition cloud, such as TCP and UDP cloud. This is the next step. We will change the current young data model to the young data model of object-oriented style. We will verify the object-oriented young data model by implementing a prototype in the next hackathon.
Question for clarification. What do you think this capability model should be applied in which interface? This capability model, right? Your capability data model. So, do you think it should be applied on the NSA facing interface or the customer facing, or all of them?
Okay. Also this the document. So Susan's capability currently is used for registration interface, such as we register NSF capability, and also we search if security controller receives some security service, and if there is no register NSF, it asks the developer management system, do you have this kind of capability NSF? So kind of a searching functionality. The third one is a kind of life cycling. So Diego mentioned the life cycling is part of Mono. So, but the interaction between the I2NSF system Mono also still required. So we need to investigate.
But you also have a register data model, registration interface data model. So what is the relation between these two? Yeah, you mean kind of this draft is used for the registration.
So the capability of this data model is just to specify what kind of a capability, the location of a capability just specified. Actual the operation, restoration, searching, or life cycling operation just imposed by registration interface, such as NSF facing interface. Yeah.
I'm not sure that work is in scope of I2NSF because we haven't discussed all these things until now in I2NSF, how to manage the registration information model. Actually, we only discussed what should be, what content or what kind of security capabilities should be registered to the management center or something, security controller. But the points you mentioned, I don't think we have discussed very good and have a result, a decision. So I'm not sure whether we should, yeah.
So yeah, actually today there is an agenda list about registration interface. At that time slot, I explain in detail how Sujan's capability data model can be used for registration. Okay.
Okay.
Just one note. I'm not objecting. I just feel that we need to more discussion about it because, and also I have not clear understanding of the relation between these two drafts. So I propose a question, but it's okay. We can discuss. Yeah.
Diego Lopez. Yeah, and when it comes to the registration interface, there is another draft on registration, and we will discuss. I have a couple of questions about that, but later on. There is another thing that puzzles me in this draft and in several others. It's about the time zone. What do you mean by a time zone? Because if a time zone is expressed in terms of a date, it's not a time zone. It's a date. Is that, I want to understand what the time zone is, simply.
As long as I understand, the time zone is just UTC time, such as this is the UTC 0 in the London, and then United States, for the Middle East case, -5 nowadays, right? Something like that. We can specify that.
Can you show the slides? John? This one, exactly. No, exactly. So you say time zone, and you say there are two values, two attributes there. This is time and date. Refer to what? That's
Currently, the type looks like a Boolean, but there is the type looks like we need to change some other type, integer or something like that.
no. This is, time can become a rather tricky issue if we want to express it. I mean, if we're talking about a precise epoch, fine, I'm fine about that. If we're talking about a time zone normally have, the time zones have an identifier. And you see UTC, UTC +1, UTC -5, simple that. And the same, what is a periodic time zone? It's something that I need some understanding because I don't understand.
Okay, let me clarify. So you can see in the past hackathon, we showed the time-based the web picture, which means during the work time, employee cannot access the Facebook or YouTube, right? A kind of disruption, right? So we can specify security policy. What time start in post, what time is expire, but it is depending on the time duration, right? So we can specify that one, time-based the security service. So we tried, but we needed some typo here, we will fix it. Okay, thank you, yeah.
Michael from Huawei. So I'm not very familiar with this group, but just quickly review document. I have some curiosity because I basically had two questions. First is, what kind of capability need to be configuration? The second is, if some capability need to be configuration, but I review this document, and here is some ability related to the system or device itself. So I believe this kind of parameters need defined like read-only, not configured and writable. So
let me clarify your question. So currently our capability model is for the compilation, just read-only, but in the next revision, we also providing the edit, delete, something like that. We try to provide more operation.
Yeah, I suggest to make it clearly because the system or device capability cannot be changed. It just need to, if you want to read it, so it must be defined read-only, not configurable and writable.
Yeah, exactly. So, but sometimes the description of capability may be something wrong. In that case, we need to modify just the override, or we modify some parts. So it depending on the operation, the local policy. So maybe you guys actually implementer, right? So which approach is better, and then we can select which one is good. We can select. Okay.
Okay, I think maybe I can understand your explain, but maybe you should consider this terminology. You set a capability or limited some capability, so it can make more clearly. I just quick review your data center trees, but this tree schema tree, sorry, not review your coding. So I believe if you don't want to change your modify terminology, maybe you should careful and define more detail in your description. Okay, thank you.
Okay, so we are reflect the comment. We reflect the detailed description. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you. So the next one is the NSF facing data model. Are you done?
Yes.
Okay, so
There. No, that's the. Yeah, that's
Hi. This presentation is about network security functions facing interface young data model. This draft is adopted as a new working group document this time. This document defines a young data model corresponding to the information model for NSF facing interface. This young data model was verified through prototype implemented at IETF101 hackathon. We received the comments from John and Dongyu and received this young data model according to comment of John and Dongyu. This version, this young data model name is changed from IETF I2NSF patient interface to IETF I2NSF policy rule for NSF. We added not only an absolute time zone, but also a period time zone to issue policy rules. We added a port number to TCP and UDP condition clause. Additionally, we changed our choice case structure into a container structure of our condition clause for multiple configuration. Likewise, action clause, we changed our choice case structure into a container structure for multiple configuration. Finally, we have modified the event condition and action clause to be aggregated into a policy. This is the next step. We will change the current young data model to the young data model of object-oriented style. We will verify the object-oriented young data model by implementing a prototype in the next hackathon.
So let me clarify last couple of months what happened. So the John Strasser, he gave a very constructive comments on this the draft. So we addressed most of his the comments except the object-oriented style and also the synchronization between the capability information model and this data model case. So we are willing to address his the comment, try to object-oriented style next the revision. Yeah.
I just have a question. Is there any example showing what is object-oriented data model?
So I think as long as probably Hank, he's also expert. So the object-oriented case, we use this, right? So we try to use some identity, so point out a kind of the pointer. So some existing structure point out using some the kinds of identity, try to reduce the repetition of the computation data. So we probably try to do not actual Java style object-oriented, but we follow the concept of object-oriented style. Yeah, but actually, unfortunately, there is no just actual. So we need to make, yeah.
Okay, thank you. So the next one is the consumer-facing interface. So we have two documents. One is the information model, one is the data model, right?
Exactly.
Um,
The information model first.
Information model first, okay.
Okay, this is Paul. So information model update case actually the minor update. So the previous the version there is some description match direction. Description was something long, so I fixed. So the previous is the description is just a match rather than match direction. So the direction means the security policy should be applied bidirectional or one direction, another direction, something like that. So we fixed this. This is a major actual change. So also, I want probably Diego and Frank and I discussed this information model is too simple. So but our data model case based on previous hackathon implement firewall and the web-based filter, we have more clear the data structure. We try next revision. We try to address that more detailed some specification. And also, Diego asked a question: multi-tenancy and also end group. What is the difference? So we need to clarify this one. Maybe we can merge or we can separate. So multi-tenant case, one policy domain can have multiple tenants, such as some department, HR or law or some financial, something like that. We deploy policy depending on the tenancy. So, but end group current information model case, the device group or employee group, something like that. So maybe we need to discuss this one. Next, we try to refine this draft. Align or synchronize current capability information model, and also we extend the information model, accommodate security policies and threat expression using some open source such as STIX, structured security threat information expression. So we specify more detail. So and then we would like call for the working group adoption, and then we can make a progress. That's it. And let's move on data more, and then we can discuss the together. It will be more efficient. Or okay, Frank, go ahead. Yeah.
Just a question. You mentioned sync and lie with the capability model. Do you have a basic idea how to do this work?
Okay. Currently, at least the security policy rule, we data model case we followed the information model, ECA model, but current the information model still the early stage. We try to clarify, reflect, the ECA.
Agree. That's one important point, and that's very important. But maybe there are still further work need to do because currently, because the capability model and the customer-facing information model are designed and proposed individually, parallelly. But anyway, at last, it should be consistent with each other. So I think I don't have a clear thought how to resolve the inconsistency between them. So we should consider and work together harder.
Michael from Harvard, this is your next topic, customer-facing interfacing type model?
Yeah, this is consumer-facing. Previous one is the consumer-facing information model. This is so.
Okay. Or what can? Just some same problem. Yeah. Okay. Michael from Harvard, I want to make it clear that it means some kind of service module. This you mean customers facing interface data model. That is some kind of service module.
Service model.
So I have a question. How did this in the service model is works on only one device or set of device? I mean set of devices.
Right, exactly.
A set of device. So how to solicit this service topology? I mean the topology, service topology.
Service topology.
Yeah, how to solicit this service topology?
So could you
Can I
define
answer?
what is the service topology?
Yeah, I can answer.
Okay.
Currently, previously I want to say that currently, this customer-facing interfaces, you're right, because this is different from the NSF-facing interfaces. This interfaces is a prohibition for the end-to-end security policy. So it should get some information from the network, what the topology is, and based on this information, we can configure our end-to-end security service. But it's out of our work. We just based on the premise that we have this kind of thing, and
So that is a good question. So actually, the one example, the during work time, employee cannot access Facebook, something like that. So that is a high-level policy, right? So security controller translate who are employee, what time the prevention time, what is the web, such as Facebook, YouTube, we figure out using the portal number, IP address, something like that. So from the database, other information. So security controller has the intelligence interpret that high-level policy into low-level policy.
Yeah.
Right.
I agree with you, but I still want to suggest you to think about how to map in your service model to the network resource, like some topology information. So I suggest maybe you can discuss with Alex, topology models author. Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, current our hackathon project case, we know if employee case, we have some intra-domain network. So we have a database who are the employee devices with the IP address. So the switches can filter out with that IP address information. So the topology case, our I2NSF security controller and SDN switch controller has interacted. So SDN switch controller has topology information. Yeah. Yeah.
Frank Xia, according to this question, I think we only concern on the maybe service function chain information. How many security functions between our customer and the service, and how they construct a service function chain. That's what kind of the topology information that we are concerned. But we don't care about the network topology.
Right, exactly.
Right. So because we are work on the security service layer, or how to say, we are application layer. We don't care about the network layer topology. And then our policy model doesn't care about anything related to network resource or something. We just care about the security policy. Security policy means that how we apply how we express the security requirement or security service to map to the firewall IDS real security configuration. So it's only about, or it's only limited on the security area. So we will consider your suggestion. It may be have relation, but I don't think it's so much. It will so much influence our design.
Yeah. As Frank's answer makes sense. If you depend on the service function chain, it makes sense. Since the service function chain already provides the topology information. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, Diego, go ahead.
So, Diego Lopez. It's about, we were talking about this list of lamport set of attributes that are associated with the customer-facing model. When it comes to tenants and groups and the like, I think that they reflect a very poor modeling in the sense that they are not well structured. And while I think that probably makes sense to think in terms of who are the subjects of the policy rules, about saying these kind of users or those users identified like this, or this group, or this group of customers or whatever, that could make sense. I don't think that the way of modeling it right now is correct. I mean, it's a way from correct because you say groups and tenants. What on earth is a group and what on earth is a tenant? And it's not enough to say, for example, human resources, for example, accounting. No, this is, you have to define what a group is. You have to define what a tenant is. Which are what defines a tenant, what makes a tenant. And then for the moment, I will put this apart and assume that this is part of something that goes in parallel.
So as you know, the Windows, the system nowadays, the security authorization or access control case, usually based on the group, right?
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, we try to use it.
Paul, I understand what a group is. The same way I understand what a function is, but when we're talking about the function here, we have to define what a function is, in spite of the common understanding. I mean, I'm mixing simply throwing in there the model tenant.
Yeah.
How do you express a tenant? What is a tenant? Because they simply say, and you identify the tenant is not enough.
Yeah, right.
You see, and it's the same. The group is made of users, but we're not modeling users. Right. Can we say this applies? What are you doing?
I'm sorry. I want to show you a proof of concept being done by the ONOC Software Defined Security. Just give you a reference of in the industry how they do the client-facing policies.
But again, Linda, I'm not saying that I'm against including this. I'm saying that it's as it's currently appearing in the document, it's not clear.
Okay. So I would like to show you this in the ONOC last year in the fall. We organized this software-defined security proof of concept. So we have several enterprise communities showing what they would like to have, and we have vendors showing how they implement that. So I find this kind of give you an example of what's the client-facing interface look like. Sorry, this. Maybe you can go on to the data model first, and then let me get this set up.
Please. Yeah. Okay, that's a good comment. There you go. Okay, consumer-facing, the interface data model is a more clear structure because of the hackathon, the project file, web, time-based web filtering. We implemented web-based access control. So we addressed the comment. So young data model modified policy domain object can have multiple tenants. So this is from, I believe, the John Stroessner gave this comment. And also over the organization of the young data model and data type clarified. And also the data model tree, the young fully addressed the ECA, the paradigm. So this is the structure of policy data model have, you can see. So especially policy rule is more clearly defined. The other domain cases still we needed to clarify what kind of multi-tenancy and the group threat fit the telemetry. So maybe Linda providing that information, we can improve consumer-based information model, and also we can improve data model together. So the major change is we accommodate the multi-tenancy in the policy rule. As you can see, one policy domain, the policy talent can abstract means multiple instance. So we can accommodate the multiple talent. Also, we can providing policy management authentication method. Minor change is we double check the data type, and we can improve, right? So end group, for example, we can double check all the field have the correct the type or not. So we reflect. The next step, we will discuss the information data model, the authors. So the issue is we needed to combine the information model and data model for consumer facing into one document or two documents. So I want to listen to your the voice, and also we also add more attack. Currently, DDoS attack mitigation is currently not included. That's why I asked the Frank to consider our capability model. So we need to collaborate this thing. And also, the sticks I mentioned, the structure, the thread information expression has a powerful tool express the thread. Maybe the I2NSF user specify more detailed high-level policy using that kind of structure. So that's why my current group investigating sticks is useful for improve our consumer page interface. That's it. Thank you. Yeah.
But I assume, sorry, thanks, yeah. I assume you, if you consider sticks, you will not, you just reference sticks,
Right, yeah.
but you don't want to specify the sticks extension in here.
Exactly. Just refer to their data model. Yeah,
Because sticks is very complex, I'm not sure how much we can use here. Or, you know, if so much things, it will take a long time to do this.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
we just take a core, some part, and Diego mentioned our information model is too long. So we try to go detailed. That's why we try to study the sticks, whether it can be improve our information model or not. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So
Do you get the slides? Sorry, this presentation is okay. Okay, go to the, okay, so this is the ONOC Software-Defined Security Service Working Group last fall's proof of concept. And we put together a proof of concept guidelines and then inviting vendors to participate. And so, so I just want to show you some key part. So this is the topology of the security services. So from ONOC perspective, it's really the northbound, like our consumer facing, like what kind of policies they would like user to impose. And in ONOC, because enterprises want to move the workload to the cloud. So in this POC, what they have decided to do is we have public clouds A and B. We allow enterprises to put some workload in two different cloud. And then they also have some workload on premises. And so this is the environment setup. And so here is the security policies. You can see that from user perspective, in this POC proof of concept is pretty straightforward. So the policy is basically saying that the workload in cloud A, for example, allows certain kind of access. The workload in cloud B allows certain kind of access. And then the workload in the on-premise data center, who they allow, what time they allow. Like if they change that into I2NSF frame format policies, like the condition will be what time or environment, who has access, and then the action or the matching condition and the action condition. And then they have a default, all others are blocked. So this just give a simple example, like when we do the consumer-facing interface, can we support some simple policies like this? I know that we try to make it more comprehensive, more complicated policies. Okay, thank you. Next one is the NSS phasing, right?
Just allow me a comment. This is something that has been very illustrative, and I think that with us, if we try to model the customer facing in that, because there what I see basically are general rules and probably some ideas about data flows. And we're naming the whole thing in the information on the data model in a way that is very, very misleading to anyone, and include myself in that.
Okay.
Did I get the right one? Or?
Wait a second. So how come we have data models? So are you doing the monitoring? The monitoring one?
Oh, then yes. Okay. I am.
Okay.
Okay, so I got the wrong presentation, but we got the right one.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
No.
Hi, I'm Hank, and I will present the latest update to the data model for monitoring in the domain of I2NSF, which is, of course, also a Yang module as we have it had it before. So we made a few consecutive updates to the drafts in order to discuss it internally and externally a bit better. So the current one, I think, is 03 at the moment. So that's not on this slide, but 03 is the current one. And basically what we did there is distinguishing things that we want to have as telemetry being reported out from a system so that we do not have to monitor by polling it all the time, but it gives us the information that we want by subscribing to specific subsets of the data of the Yang module. We are doing this because Yang push and subscribe notifications are now a thing, thanks to Eric and NetConf and others, of course, but just see Eric here. And so there is the possibility to subscribe to a data store. In our case, we created a lot of statically defined notifications. This is up to discussion and up to understand what we are doing here right now. So basically, the module shrank to a lot of small things, and these are the events, alarms, and logs. And not, sorry, the module shrank to a lot of, to a tiny bit of things. It's only the counters, because those we do not want to report out. For example, an on-chain subscription to a continuously changing counter would be basically a waste of bandwidth and time. So you could do a periodic update or just retain the old model of polling counters, because everybody does that. That is very usual. And so counters are still a standard Yang module representation at the moment. Everything else here on this message type list, which is event, alert, alarm, etc., is now a specific notification, as you can see here with the new information, monitoring information, which is in the data model, not to forget this. And this is high granularity. So for every system type of system event, we have a single notification in the draft at the moment. For every type of NSF event, like a flood detection or like some other unauthorized access, we have a specific hard-coded notification at the moment. That might be too fine granular. What we might want to have is to have a generic system notification and a generic NSF notification in which we can introduce case choices and use another concept that was on a slide before, I will not go back, that uses identities to make these choices. So that we also introduced next to this split between the standard data store model and the notification definitions, we introduced a lot of identities. And this comes up here. Now this is basically, yeah, a lot of identities. This is exactly the right slide. So what was once a container, I think there's a pointer here. So which was once a container that had just a set of Booleans in it, is now an identity that is creating taxonomies. So we have a access mode identity and a lot of specific access modes that have a parent identity, which is substatement by base. So now we can have taxonomies of things in our models, for example, in this kind, access modes, and which I think is especially appealing, we can have taxonomies of attack methods. And that is something that will be very useful in the post-processing of these reported notifications, because associating specific attacks that are detected is way more easier if you have a semantic distance between them. So for example, a flood attack and a web attack might be closely correlated because they are on the same, they have the same parent, for example. And with this taxonomy, we started basic taxonomy built on the stuff we had already. We can build later on by adding just new identities, which are new attack kinds. Therefore, we would use those identities in the generalized notifications, which are now, to reiterate that, very specific ones to have a good overview and understand them better, but we could aggregate them again. So this is basically the biggest change we made to the layout of the data model at the moment. And the big advantage here is that NSF is going to publish this information to the subscriber, and we do not have to pull everything all the time arbitrarily from a Yang data store. So we have a report telemetry channel, a stream, so to speak. The actual term is stream. We're using this identity a lot. We are also using something that I don't know is always validating. We have at some point, for example, two parents. So TCP in our model can be have a parent on a layer 3. So this layer 4 protocol has a parent in two layer 3 protocols that are basically IPv4 and IPv6. That does not validate with every tool. And it is not really clear to me how established and implemented having multiple parents in identity actually is. As a Yang 1.1 most certainly allows for it. Implementation-wise, you might have to diverge from that because it might not be effectively usable in practice right now. I'm not sure. Maybe this will change why we write this, but that's not a biggie. But that was one thing that was not basically validated before, but we are using that kind of structure at the moment, so we can have also taxonomies of protocol types. In this case, spanning layers. So what we will do is we want to go forward and have more and better understanding how to build these taxonomies of identities here. Again, which will be helpful in post-processment and give more semantic meaning to post-processment and monitoring components, basically. We would really like to have input from outside of this working group in regard to NetConf, how the notification statements that we are using now could be improved, especially in terms of extending them later on. That's the most important thing. I think that today we have a set of informations we want to report, but tomorrow it might be more advanced or even a different type of the same attack type. The context and the connotation changes, I mean. So we have to plan for extensibility and changes in the model. And that is something we have to improve on, I think, because the static notifications would just add new static notifications you then have to know about. So distributed knowledge of the existing of something is always a problem. Maybe just use a more generic one and then have this identity choices in them. I guess that's a better way, but we are still discussing that. So that's one way to go forward. We want to have this done at the next hackathon also, because the hackathon team is great. I mean, literally outputting all the time excellent proof of concepts. So I'm looking forward to that next time. And yeah, I think when we are done with the proof of concept, we can basically go to probably adoption call, I think.
Hi, Frank Xia. Hi, I have two questions. Firstly, currently we defined a lot of notification. We use this way to push our telemetry. My question is, can this way support both periodically push and the on-time push?
Yeah, it can do exactly that. In theory, it is not really clearly defined how and where this capability of real-time, that's called on-change, and
yes.
periodic is defined actually as a capability,
right.
because this is in flux. It was going out of one draft, is not arrived in another draft yet. This is ongoing work in the NetConf community. Eric might have another comment on that, I think. It's a better answer than my answer. But the basic answer is, yes, of course, you can do exactly that. But Eric might have a comment on that.
To answer the question, there's really two kinds of subscriptions being developed in the NetConf. You can subscribe to a data store or you can subscribe to a stream. When you subscribe to a stream, you have the option of getting the events as they're produced out of the stream. You also have a replay buffer. So if you want to replay them later, that's fine. Once they're identified and selected, you have the ability to still batch, process, and send them as groups. But that's part of the marshalling effort. So the idea of taking all your events and sending them to a marshaled bundle is something that's another draft that we're working on, and there's no reason you can't configure the sending of groups of those events at a periodic schedule independent of the subscription to them.
Do you, question for you, do you think that it is useful to bundle those information as a group to send, using our scenario?
Yes, in fact, there's an adopted draft aimed at bundling these records, and it will support the bundling notifications. This draft is adopted in NetConf.
Yeah, this is also ongoing, and yeah, there's if you do bundling of, for example, periodic subscription would be possible as a data store subscription to the counter module, and a stream subscription could also be bundled to the notifications that are defined. Yeah. But these then would have would aggregate, they would buffer. You would not receive them, but you would have them after a minute and get all notification in this notification bundle message. So both varieties, subscriptions to data store and to streams, can have this periodic interval by that.
Second question: can current data model support the fetch, or how to say pool model?
Notifications can, this I don't actually know, can they be queried? I don't think so.
There is a replay button.
Yeah, it is basically a workaround. You could just subscribe for a short time, basically, and then
another way to
stop watching that resource. It depends on the thing, but again, this is a mechanic to NetConf, which I am not actually familiar with. I was not thinking about just querying a notification. And Eric, again, please.
I think we need it. Maybe we can, in addition to our notification, we should also have the pool.
Direct answer to that, the early draft that got adopted for the bundled messages did have the choice of storing the messages for later retrieval. Many people thought that was overkill because the ability to query events out of a data store seemed a little much. So if there was a desire for it, recreating or taking the structure that already exists for random access to the events is possible, but you're going to go up a long hill to have somebody who wants to do random access into the events. It's a hard processing model.
Yeah. Sorry, Alex, next.
Yeah, this is Alex. Yeah, just to add on to that, this is actually one reason why basically in the notification bundles and so forth, basically the notification are defined as records independent of what you do with them. So you could also define a log, for instance, to store them in. We did not define that, but this is, if that is something that is needed, that would be one thing would be a natural thing to have log and then operations on that.
I think we provide a good example for your notification subscription mechanism to do more, maybe to be more powerful.
Yeah, we are building the bundled notification message draft right now. So let me finish this one thought. And yes, there is a semantic there's a big semantic overlap between events and logs. They're basically the same thing. Events imply that you are somehow conveying them in close to real time, like as soon as possible. And logs somehow imply that you store them a little bit and then somehow access them. But that is literally the only difference between them. The content semantically is the same. So if you really want to have a aggregating blog of notifications that you retrieve on your periodic, you have the control of when to get it. You could aggregate the things in the message notification, but that was pushed back a little bit. So I was considering actually aggregating events and logs in the same notification, just adding an optional part of metadata that is necessary to express the log, but which is log specific to the events, so to speak. So
Okay, so I think our I2NSF, the security services authentication case, DDoS attack case, notification is very useful. Just a logging case, maybe too late to detect and then take action. So I think the push service also, notification also very important to take action early stage.
Yeah. If there is a use case that you really want to have the notifications that are actually interesting to monitoring stored and not pushed to you, we can still build that in again. But I'm under the impression that if it is not relevant, if it's just generated by the agent or somehow parsed from a log file, you want them as soon as possible, I think. And even if you cannot process it, there are dampening periods if you're overloading your resources. It's an intrinsic part of the yank, push, and subscribe notification drafts. And also with the on-change subscription, it is all about visibility. You can make it in a way, you can subscribe in a way that you lose no detail. And you can subscribe in a way that you only get the newest thing that, according to your resources, is visible to you. It is up to you how to dampen and how to subscribe to the on-change subscription method. And so you have already a little bit of control there. And but if there is still actually really the use case that you want to query an aggregating block of notifications or log file lines, whatever, we can build that in again. But I actually don't see that use case. But Frank might have a use case for that. And if it is there, we can build something accordingly.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
So the next one is the registration information model and the data model. Registration. Yes.
Okay, this is Paul from SKKU. So the registration information interface information model and data model, we addressed some the life cycling, but this is for some interaction with the NFV manual. So registration interface had three functionalities. The first one is the register NSF into security controller. Second one is some consumer interface delivering some security service request. So what kind of capability exists? If there is no such kind of capability, NSF security controller can query to the vendors or developer management system. Third one is interaction with NFV manual to request the life cycling service. So the first one is registration. You can see develop management system, register NSF capability. So which means currently the Sujan's capability data model is used to register capability of NSF. And then security controller store into each local repository NSF and its capabilities. The second one is query and interaction. The query case, you can see the I2NSF user deliver some high-level policy into a security controller. If there is no such kind of the capability require the capability exists or not. If there is no such kind of capabilities, it contact developer management system to ask such kind of capability NSF. If we can say acronym DMS, developer management system, finds on NSF with required capability, it returns that information using registration interface, and then it can store, map, and then can take care of that request user high-level security policy. Secondly, the lifecycling case. So if currently we are using the monitoring interface Hank mentioned, so you can see the NSF is overloaded, something like that, or there is something wrong because of some DDoS attack, something like that. In that case, we may make another NSF. In that case, we needed to ask the development management system create new NSF to care of that request, and then it can create something like that. So here, one point is we don't handle the manual directly. Just I would say some interaction for lifecycling is required because security controller also working for that kind of monitoring. So next step is we needed to identify what kind of functionality. I think the first one, restoration of NSF capability and the quality, I think most of the group can agree. But third one, maybe at least Diego had some concern about that one. So we needed to decide that kind of lifecycling interface we can consider restoration interface or not. That's it. Thank you.
Any questions on this?
Diego Lopez is a comment. I mean, I don't see clearly. I mean, again, it's not that you need to interface the I2NSF framework to OpenStack or to whatever else in cloud or anything. Is whether this belongs to the registration interface. Is my concern. My understanding is that the registration interface is for the developing environment to register a new security function. So somehow building a sort of a DevOps loop where you can say, here you have adapted this, that you can use something related or similar to start an action by a cloud orchestrator or an NFV orchestrator is something that I would put aside the registration interface. Among other things, because the kind of objects you would have to use and not the capabilities. I mean, I doubt very much that you're going to, when you tell a manual system, say, here you have the capabilities. The manual system would not know what to do. I think this is more a matter for the security controller. I mean, not through the registration interface. We can analyze another interface, or we can, that will be more connected to what currently manual systems or cloud systems do. That would be my recommendation. So, I mean, there's a value in this work, and I think it would be useful, but not connected to the registration interface itself.
Okay, thank you. Yeah.
Hi, good morning, Pedro. Carlos Tercero. Just a small request for clarification, very much in line with what Diego was saying. The sooner you know whether you want to do it in an OpenStack or cloud environment or in a manual environment, the better for all, because then we can concentrate and see what we want to do. I think throwing both concepts to the air is a bit creating a bit too much of fog in the situation. And I think that there's a lot of value in this proposition, but this value is being actually, quote unquote, killed by not knowing where to put this thing.
So I would say we just focus on you can see two functions, register and the query. And the third one is maybe we just discussion section in this draft. So maybe some life cycling, maybe DMS. We think this is a kind of VNF manager, right? So in that case, it somehow security controller can talk to VNF manager to request something. So currently, our I2NSF doesn't consider interaction with that kind of Ramano system, right? So currently my team consider, registration type maybe can be used because it can already used to register or query. So that is one option. Otherwise, we need to make another some interface, right? Interaction with security controller and the manual system, right? So I think that maybe third one we can say discussion section. This registration interface may be used for interaction for life recycling for manual. Yeah, that's my opinion. Yeah.
Thanks a lot for the clarification. And if you do something, if you plan to do something on this manual interface during the next hackathon,
yeah, exactly. Currently,
I would like to know in time to plan my time because I may be in it. I'm really interested in that.
Okay, so actually my team already started the OpenStack based the I2NSF implementation. We try to making a VNF on top of OpenStack. A manual case, open source manual with maybe Diego, other people can help. Are you? Okay. So we can take advantage of your some knowledge and experience. So integrate our hackathon system into the actual real system. Okay.
After the we can discuss this offline.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Can you go to the Etherpad, put your name and email there so that make it simple for our people to reach you.
Good. So let's move on the next SFC. Yeah, I will just a quick update.
Triggered steering.
Yeah, SFC traffic steering.
Yep.
So I think the SFC case, okay, I will give some update. In the past, our approach, my team approach, tried to use our own new service function training, but some people saying SFC already exists, so we just take advantage of SFC. For example, OBS switching OpenDaylight already providing SFC functionality. My group actually working using the OBS SFC. So the one thing we needed to how to use or how to extend. Current our answer is that we try to using metadata field for NSH header to select the next security function, such as the current packet is handled by firewall, and then looks like DPI is a request. In that case, the packet forwarded to DPI NFV. So currently, I mentioned OpenDaylight controller OBS switch can be used for our service function chaining. So you can see OBS switch can be performing for classifier and service function forwarder SFFL. So security controller, but security controller and classifier or the SFF require some interfaces. Currently, we don't have any kind of interface. That is a missing point. So also, security controller can ask some function training because OBS switch usually classifier and the SFF. So also actual the forwarder, the unit, right? So in that case, we need to do some interaction security controller and SDM switch controller. So that some chain information delivered, and also we needed to configure. So major missing part is some interaction between the security controller and SFC some stuff. So next step, we want to define new interface such as I2NSF and the SFC interface to configure service function chaining. And also we design the information model, Yang model to specify, but I think this work is a secondary work. I understand our working group should be finished the data young model for 3 interfaces first. And then, but I believe actual service I2NSF case, SF is still important. So we try to keep going, and then we get some input from our group, and then we can POC in hackathon. That's it. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you.
Any question, comment? Oh, okay.
Any question on this subject?
This is Yang Bo from China Mobile. A very basic question because this is my first time attend. So I noticed that you will define a SFC interface between the security controller and the SDN controller. So shall this be the only interface between between security controller and the SDN controller, or where we have other kind of control method, such as maybe routing or some kind of things?
Okay. So I think that currently we don't clarify such kind of interface between security controller and the SDN switch controller, or SDN or the security controller and the classifier, because given some flow, we needed to say some service function chaining, some traffic flow should experience firewall, DPI, or DDoS attack. Certain traffic is very clean. In that case, just the firewall is enough, something like that. That kind of flow information should be delivered to classifier to provide a service function chaining. But that kind of interface is not defined yet. So that's why we try to define, but I say that is a kind of secondary work for our working group, because our working group is consumer, NSF, and the restaurant interface is more important. Yeah, but in order to provide actual service function, I think the SF is also. That's why we keep working for this. Yeah.
Understand. Can you please go back to the graph?
This one?
Yes, exactly. Oh no, previously.
Okay.
Yeah, this actually, from my point of view, I do think that maybe the better way is to let SDN controller to decide whether it will need a service function chain or not.
Okay.
It's better than for the security controller to do this.
Okay.
It's only my own opinion.
Actually, our working group case, SDN is optional, which means SDN can be used or not. So in this one is, actually SDN is not used, but if we are using SDN network, so security controller, SDN switch controller should interact. So we have two options.
So from my suggestion is that we just separate them as different logic blocks, and it will be loose coupled.
Okay. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Yeah. Very much. Okay.
Thank you. So the next one is the attestation is a subject. We'll have Diego and Frank talk about it.
Okay, Frank Xia, Huawei. Firstly, thanks the chairman kindly give us this session to introduce remote attestation concept or this requirement in here. Because this is a problem, or this is a question raised in I2NSF several long time. We have some description in the I2NSF framework document that how to guarantee that the remote network security function is trustworthy. So this is also very urgent for the whole architecture. So here we bring a use case drafter to describe the problem we have met. We want to get more discussion and more comments from people here. Okay, next page. Oh, let me, sorry. Okay, here in these slides, we will give a brief introduction and what is our motivation to have this kind of solution, and the overview of this draft. And the main content of this draft is that we have two use cases, or we call it two models that we need the remote attestation function to apply to them. And okay. And firstly, what is the remote attestation? This is a very general well, a very general answer or a very general explanation. So the security integrity attestation is to make a statement that the state of the assistant is considered to be good or to be trustworthy, or it is a malicious one. So we want to prove it or want to do the attestation on it. But currently there is no, there are some priority solutions from different vendors, but there's no standard solution in industry. So it makes this very useful functions cannot be widely applied in current network. And further, in addition to this basic question, we also what we face right now is in the cloud network or in some modern network, such as visualized NFV scenarios. There are some additional questions when we want to do these remote attestation functions. I will talk later. And so still, this is a summary. So currently, for the remote attestation, we lack a proper protocol specification, and without it, it will lead the incapability among the different vendors, the different devices, and also what we face is that for the visualized network and multi vendors deployment their devices in the network, and for the visualized network, there are different stakeholders there also. So it makes the scenario more complex to handle. So we want to talk about it. And the last one is scalability. You know, if we deploy the NFV network, a lot of network security function, visualized functions is deployed in the cloud or in the network. So there are, if we deploy the remote attestation, there will be a lot of message and to send or exchange it among the NSF and the attestation center or some many center. So the scalability will be a big problem. Okay, so actually I have said something. The multi-stakeholders problem is that for a cloud network, we have a cloud service provider, and we also have the cloud service customer, and we have the cloud service user, which means that, for example, the Amazon is a cloud service provider, and some enterprise is his customer. So they are the different stakeholders. They want to use remote attestation for different goal and in their scope. So it will result in that how to control the remote attestation area or its limit, or how to give a holistic view of its trustworthy status or state to the attest center. So there's a lot of across domain or across stakeholders problem. And another big problem is that actually there are some constraints among different stakeholders. One stakeholder can only get his information, he cannot get others, but they can cooperate together, maybe through some mechanism. So we must consider these constraints on how to get his information, how to do the remote attestation. Okay, and in this document, the use case draft, currently we only propose 2 use cases for the visualized network or NFV network. One is the decentralized mode, and another is the centralized mode. So like their name, they have different operation model. In short, the decentralized mode that different stakeholders implement their own remote attestation in their scope or in their network, and they may share their attestation result or attestation information with other stakeholders, but it depends on their contract, their business relation or their interaction relation. So it's a little bit difficult for sharing this information when the stakeholder has many. But for the centralized mode, we have a centralized attestation center. This center can get different kind of information from different stakeholders, and he can do the whole or can do all kinds of attestation for different stakeholders and get the overview information. So maybe that's a more easy way to do things. So the next page is about the relation. For the relation among the cloud service provider, cloud service customer, cloud service user, and the other external entity. The relation between them. The relation between them. If we can see, this first line is about measurement information. Means that we collect their configuration of their status from the NSF, and the appraiser information means that we have some stored information. That is the correct information that used to compare the information I collected to guarantee that the devices runs well. And the appraiser result means that okay, we're comparing these two results and we get that whether this function is work well or it's being attacked, and how to access this result. So there are different kinds of relation among different stakeholders. Okay. And this picture is about when in the centralized mode, how they can access different information and work together. Okay, so we welcome everyone if you are interested to read this draft to learn more details. But in general, we just want to say that currently for us, for the NFV environment, for the remotization is we need a protocol specification to solve this problem. So currently we propose a use case here. And later, I want to mention that in the next version, we will incorporate another use cases from other vendors, several from Ericsson. It's about some, maybe not for the NFV environment, for the other environment, because I think IETF is a place to define the general protocol, not only for the NFV, but for the older network. So that's our goal. Okay, that's all. Thank you.
Thank you. So, Diego, you have something to show? Is there any question for Frank first?
Okay, this is Paul from SKKU. So I'm wondering, the monitoring case may be a good functionality to attest the remote the NSF is working on that. So could you clarify the differentiation between monitoring and attestation?
They are different things. Monitoring is that how I can monitor the devices running status and how I can attack the things happened in the network. For example, the abnormal traffic or some network events. But the attestation is very specifically about the integrity of the device. It's operating systems integrity, its software integrity, its runtime process integrity. So actually, currently in industry, there are two categories of information to collect and to track different, to track different results to get different results.
Okay, thank you. Yeah.
So, Diego, you want to show the things you have? Yep. You get extra time.
Whatever, I hope it would work. Basically, these are a few reflections on attestation. Why we are applying attestation in I2NSF funds. Well, some ideas on how we could evolve with attestation, whether inside the I2NSF or somewhere else. So the idea is that why do we need remote attestation in general? When dealing, I mean, I would say when dealing with many different, in many different environments, but especially when we're dealing with security and security functions, the idea is that is to provide the consumer reasonable evidence that is dealing with a function that can be trusted. Since this is one of the bases of for security, and it's about create evidence from events. So in case that there is any problem, you can use it as an evidence that we're at the root of the problem of the security breach, or the attack or whatever happened. The idea is that, when we're talking about virtualized environments, as Frank was mentioning, or what Linda was showing when talking about the cloud, it has to do as well to detect in a remote way the alteration of the components that they're going to be used, because in those cases, the potential or the threat surface is much bigger because you don't have the physical access. In fact, something is precisely to mitigate the case in which this physical access happens in the case of virtualized, cloud-based, NFV-enabled, whatever you call it, SDN environments. In particular, in I2NSF from the beginning, we thought that while you can run or you must run at the station at the different components that you are using at the different platforms and functions on which that are running on the platform, the idea would be to rely on the security controller as the focal point for this attestation, though that would allow that the user would be able to deal with performance mutual authentication with a well-known points. So it would be, you would need only a trusted, a root of trust for establishing the connection. And on the other hand, because the security controller, apart from orchestrating the security functions and making the translations of the customer facing function, etc., would act precisely as an orchestrator of the attestation procedure. Well, these are some definition about what a remote attestation are. When coming to definition, the only thing I can do is reading them for you, and I guess that you would be much better than me in reading them, and your accents would sound much more correct than my strong Spanish accent. So please read it. Basically, it's about defining what is attestation, what is conveying the evidence from one element to the other. What do we mean when talking about the verification, and what do we mean when talking about remote attestation in particular? There is a draft precisely that defines this terminology, and this is should be at the core of any attestation activity we have. This is a general model from another draft in which that gentleman with the striped shirt is working. That precisely applies the what we were talking about in terms of what is which are the different elements and how the process is applied by those elements. Basically, there is from the verifier to the attester, there is a request that includes some crypto devices to guarantee freshness and integrity, etc. There is a collection of the integrity claims, and they are sent back to the verifier that makes the assesses the evidence. How this is performed at the attester, how you establish trust on the claims, and how these claims are verified by the verifier are part of the particular attestation framework. This is from a general draft that describes the general model. So when it comes to I2NSF, we have the famous three interfaces, though maybe if we start talking about manual and things like that, probably we'll end up with a few others. But basically, the idea is that the attestation, as we see it, attestation doesn't make too much sense. You can apply attestation everywhere. And for sure, you can rely, if you're developing, you won't request to attest the security controller. But where we see it critical is in the two vertical interfaces. In the case of the registration, seems that mutual authentication, so the developer system knows who's the security controller and can be sure that it's talking with a well-identified security controller should be enough. But in the case dynamically, since the interactions in the vertical interfaces are dynamically, looks like makes sense that if you are going to deal with all your security policies with a particular elements, you want to remain ensure that you are dealing with the right elements and that has not been altered. And what is more, if that element is the one that is attesting on behalf of the others, and you're using as an intermediary because it's the way in which you interact with it, is you rely on it to collect the other evidence from the NSFs. What you have between braces is that to remind you that at the end, what happens is that the customer ends connected to the network security function. I mean, it's controlling it. This is control plane. This is real data plane, and that happens, and this is why we need the vertical attestation, basically. So there is a draft that I have just updated a few minutes ago because I remember it was about to expire, in which we were making some proposals of how to apply remote attestation procedures in I2NSF using the security controller as the verifier. The draft is about to expire because it was about to expire because we were waiting about what the group wanted to do with it. In parallel, Hank and Andre Frank has started to work on this. We have other drafts, and well, probably we will have to somehow combine them in a remote attestation track here or elsewhere. The idea, basically, as you can see, is that first of all, just as a summary, first the customer system goes for an attestation of the security controller, so it can be sure that it's talking with the right security controller. Then it can start requesting the security controller to forward attestation evidence from the different platforms, from the different network security functions that the controller knows. And the important thing is that what we propose here is not only the attestation, but create trusted channels. Trusted channels are connections. I mean, are connections. Think about IPsec, think about TLS, think about any secure connection that rely on the attestation results that have been verified for deriving the secure connection. So you can be reasonably sure, as you saw, not completely sure, but reasonably sure that you're talking with the original and altered system that you requested at the beginning and that your verifier told you that was in a correct state. The point is that many of these procedures are applicable in the I2NSF environment, but could be applicable in other environments, and this is something that we have to take into account. It's a little bit the same as I believe that, for example, the capability model can be extended for other cases, but we are in the under the scope we are. Well, here is where we stand. We have these 4 drafts right now available in the data tracker, one on terminology, one on the remote attestation in the environment of I2NSF, one on a different mechanism for attestation that is not the usage of the, is not based in the usage of the, which is the name, a trusted device inside the attester that is based on a trusted source of time, and correct me if I'm wrong. And this one that Frank has presented on the use cases applicable to NFE. There is another in preparation that is the one the one that uses the figure that I used before about the general attestation procedure that would constitute, together with the terminology, foundation for the remote attestation case. And there are a couple of platforms that we have started. Not sure whether we would be going to be asked by the chairs to move apart our discussions elsewhere. So we have started a list that is called RATS about remote attestation, as you can imagine. And there is this GitHub repository for documentation related to remote attestation. And well, finally, those who are part of the RATS pack believe that this is an essential matter for I2NSF, which have implications well beyond the working group, but we can establish the foundations here. And that's all. I mean, this is just, it was precisely to open the discussion to know what the group thinks about this idea, whether we should progress. I am my personal interpretation in the scope is that we are within scope, but maybe we need to fiddle a little bit with the scope to make everything, or whether you think that we should go elsewhere, take our baggage and go a pilgrimage from group to group, or does the security AD just asking for a place for the rats? That's all. Thank you.
Okay, yeah, you'll note that in this session we don't have an AD, which is kind of strange because there are currently 3 ADs and yet all of them went to TLS. Okay.
That's yeah. This is it. This is it. Not being the popular one in the class. That is.
Maybe another interpretation. We're doing so well, so they
Exactly that they
yeah.
They trust us.
Yes.
Whatever.
So, any questions for Diego's talk?
So this is Paul from SKKU. I think attestation is very important, but my one concern is this more like related to intelligence in the security. So I'm wondering if the vendor can release their actual proprietary there's a method to the open society. So that is my first concern. You come up with some actual some attestation, some proprietary, some protocol or something, and then you can probably working group can work. But currently, my concern is like that.
Well, the attestation mechanisms I'm aware of for sure. I mean, they had to rely somehow on things that are physical at the end. But there are, well, on the one hand, currently there are these TPMs and the enclaves and the HSM, which is the technology. They are open. I mean, they're open standards. So you rely on open standards that are implemented by vendors. So that would be right. This is, I mean, for the kind of attestation we are used to. It is the base of a trusted module. That there are. I mean, I'm aware at least of the TURA proposal that uses a trusted source of time. Henk can tell you about the details, and which is different in that sense. And I am aware of people that are working on other kind of digital signatures. Well, evidence that can be derived from the behavior of physical systems. They are not standardized as far as I can tell, but probably we could even experiment with this. When it refers to this, it's something that can be, I mean, it's something that I think we can deal with as long as we request, for sure, we have to require that there was a trusted source of something in which you can base your the evidence. But
Thank you. I do have a question. For this remote attestation, are you expecting it to be done offline, or is it something dynamically you have to ask the other party to validate certain things?
or should be dynamic. Is that
Dynamic?
validation? Basically, I mean, think about your booting. You're connecting you are doing your connection from your client to the security controller, and then you get certain you request the evidence, you get the evidence, and you send it to the verifier. That normally, I mean, in some tests that we have done, normally may take 4 or 5 seconds. If you're at the beginning of the session with your corporate VPNs, should be enough, should be reasonable. And if you want periodic attestations from time to time, you may feel some hiccup in your connection. Well, that depends. It's a matter, something that we did in the group I'm working with Andre, for example, some time ago, was defining a set of level of assurance. So depending on how important is for you the attestation, you can go to level of assurance 0 or go to level of assurance, remember the maximum was 6. The 6 was purely paranoid, even not using technology that's not even available, but that we could think about. So you can request that. But I would say that in general is something that is reasonable in terms of human interactions with the machine.
So another question, when you say attestation, I saw you try to verify the controller. Do you have something to validate the function, which being, say, you have a function instantiated in cloud and asking the cloud provider to give you some kind of validation to show the runtime environment?
What you do basically is this: you require to the in this case you would be requiring to the security controller. You will send a message: send me your evidence. Security controller, what could have the claims already stored as long as they are fresh enough, or calculate them, build the reply, send the reply to the system, and then that depends on the system whether you decide to run your own verification or you rely on a third party that you trust. In principle, normally in a normal environment, what you have is one verifier that is external because it's more efficient to have that. If you have a top paranoid environment, you verify yourself.
Okay,
sorry.
Yeah, hi, this is Hank at the mic. A few comments. Just attestation in general has this concept of freshness. So evidence that is basically a day old doesn't help you. So if you can replay evidence that's not about the current state of trustfulness, but from maybe another system, and then identity comes in again. So it has to be from that specific system entity, and it has to be fresh. So these are typically requirements of remote attestation procedures, and the protocols try to somehow prove freshness, convey evidence in the way that it is, you can see that it is fresh and it is from that specific system entity. So these are I think the basic fundamental things here. And that is, for example, to prove that it is from a specific thing, then we are going beyond the scope of a protocol. Diego says HSM a lot of times now, the hardware security model inside a component, which is a little bit unusual for the IETF because it is a characteristic that is outside of the protocol, but it is, you need that shielded secret basically to create evidence that is useful then as payload inside the protocol. So we have a little bit a dependency that is beyond a protocol definition here. That is the only real new thing that everybody has to wrap their minds around a little bit here at the IETF. Also have to highlight that there are of course other standardization bodies, which of course first comes to mind is a trusted computing group who builds HSMs that can include shielded secrets, for example, and they are also working on attestation procedures and frameworks, but they are not interested to build all the protocols, but they are more about the things that you need to create the evidence. So this goes a little bit hand in hand. I don't think that the IETF is very, very concerned about operations on HSMs inside a system. They're probably more concerned about the actual conveyance of evidence, the architecture in an I2NSF structure, for example. So I think reaching out to them and then maybe have a aligned terminology, which basically the attestation terminology is about. One of the authors is a member of the TCG, and that's Monty Weissman from General Electric's Global Research. And he's basically the guy who is in charge of the glossary over there in the Trusted Computing Group. So we're trying to align in terms, so we speak about the same things. It's really hard to misunderstand the goal and the intent of a specific attestation, a remote attestation procedure very fast if you do not use the terms like literally the same way. And yeah, that's my final comment to this. Thank you.
Thank you. So in terms of relevance to I2NSF, are you anticipating to define the model for the exchange? Like you showed this picture of the attester and the requester. Is that something?
The idea, I mean, the idea I have in mind is precisely when we have finished this general model, I would like to make a rewriting of the draft Pastor to precisely to put it in the same terms as we have the general model. So at that moment we will have a general model for attestation on the one hand plus the terminology that probably could be combined. Okay. And then we would have that general model plus another document that would describe how to apply the general model in the I2NSF environment.
Okay.
that's basically, and then we have to deal with the use cases because this is something that we have to feed somewhere. But this is something that we have to sort out with Andre.
Thank you. Okay.
So I have one question. So what is the plan for draft we're called attestation terminology? Because that doesn't sound like it's specific for I2NSF. Maybe we're a big consumer, but
yeah, no,
it's more generic.
Like the same that for the general
Right.
reference model is
Yeah.
legal as well.
I think you're absolutely right. Even the time-based unidirectional attestation is not specific to I2NSF. These are all protocols, and Diego's draft maps them through the I2NSF architecture explicitly. The use cases that are presented by Frank and Andre, who is on the remote screen, by the way, Andre Ryan. They're also not very specific to I2NSF, but to virtual components. Of course, they are then interesting to I2NSF, but they're also not I2NSF specific. So we have a little bit of a mismatch here, impedance mismatch about where we place this stuff. But I2NSF is the only place that's really interested in doing it and implementing it as a protocol, as a variety, as a bouquet of protocols, maybe that is customer specific, or so it's consumer facing, or if it's NFS facing, or it's in vertical, or in which vertical part. So we have specific solutions that we can choose from, and therefore I think it is still okay to do it here. But you're right, the attestation terminology draft is basically highlighting this is beyond the I2NSF domain. Especially because we're pulling in stuff from TCG and a global platform there. So it is not associated with I2NSF. It is an individual draft.
Okay, so I would suggest that you go to SecDispatch to find a home for
I
these,
was
documents.
talking to Roman about that. But then again, I think, how do you flock? So what is going where and why? And I don't want to clog this working group with half of it is just attestation and nobody's interested in this, so to speak. But I think a lot of people are at the moment interested here. And as an intermediate solution, I think talking here is nice, really nice, because a lot of people are interested here. And talking to Roman, of course, seems to be mandatory, yes.
Right. Okay. Anything else?
Thank you very much. Blue sheet. Where is the
Yeah.
blue sheet?
Has everyone signed the blue sheet?
No, not me.
Well, then you all should. Anything for open mic? If not, then we'll see you all in
Montreal.
Montreal, right?
Montreal, yes.
Yeah. Hopefully.
Somewhere.
Yeah. Somewhere in a hotel. Sometimes I will forget where it is. Good. Hopefully we can get data model finished, and then our working group is done.
Yeah.
Right? So for attestation, I can see that the interface part from two parties, that may be the scope I2NSF. Terminology is not, right? So how do you want to include policy? So this, I used to think this is not interesting, but at the ONUP workshop 2 weeks ago, this General Dynamics and eBay, they all strongly think this is a very important aspect, because now they put workload in